How you doing today, folks? So today I have a true hard use and long-term review of the Spyderco Manix 2. As you can see, this knife has been through hell. There are chips on the blade that I can't seem to sharpen out because S110V is ridiculously hard and I don't want to deal with it. We got snail trails, we got scratches, we got a whole bunch of stuff. This has been my user knife for a long time. Year, maybe 2 years, I'm not honestly sure. Whenever the kind of sprint run of the S110V Spyderco came out, I pre-ordered that, put some brass scales on it, and I've been carrying this thing ever since. So however long, whenever that came out, is how long I've had this knife. It's been a long time. I've had a lot of knives since then. This one is just stuck around, which is strange, right? Because I have 2XL hands. This knife does not fit my hands. If I use this finger choil, I'm still just barely on. If I don't use the finger choil, I am nowhere near on. I have this whole piece sticking off. It's really uncomfortable. But, as long as this choil is being used, it's very comfortable. This jimping here, rock solid, sits very well. It is honestly just a great knife. I like bigger and heavier folders. So this thing being with having these brass scales on it, which have this very nice kind of bronzy patina to them, is absolutely perfect for me personally. I'm not going to go ahead and deal with detail of the specs or anything in this video. I just don't want to deal with that, to be completely frank with you guys. But I am going to talk about some pros, some negatives, some personal opinions, and mostly just the experience of using this knife, because this is a phenomenal knife. It does have some problems, to be sure, but it is absolutely good to go. First and foremost, this knife has amazing lines that are completely ruined by this random ass lanyard hole. Now, I use lanyards, don't get me wrong. I actually took mine off of this knife for this video to give it kind of more of a stock appearance, which, thinking about it, customized brass scales, damage all over the blade, like that's not really going to give it a stock appearance. That was stupid. But I do use this lanyard hole. However, it really obscures the lines of the knife. They had to move the clip over and everything else to in order to be able to fix it. This whole thing is just designed by this lanyard hole, which again, even being a lanyard guy, I don't see the purpose to it. It really just takes away a lot from the knife. Now, we also have these plastic caged bearing system right here. Now, I have the upgraded titanium version of it. Again, to make the knife more stock, I put the original one back on, which again was stupid, and this is a pain in the ass to get back on, so this is not the greatest idea. But that is definitely something to be mentioned. This is plastic. I know people who have broken this. I have not, but I also put the titanium on as soon as they were released, which has been maybe about a year now, if I had to guess, when the titanium bearing cage was released from Flytanium, I think it was. Now, let's talk about jimping, right? This is how you jimp a knife. Now, as you can see, it's all right here, all right here, all over here. This knife just has tons and tons of jimping. And it adds kind of a weird looking aesthetic to it that I don't quite like, but as soon as you put this in your hand, it all fits, it works, your hands don't go anywhere, and you also don't feel this. Now, if you rub your fingers up and down this or whatever, is it a hot spot? Yes. Does it hurt? Yeah, I'm literally skinning my finger off doing that. But that's not how this is supposed to be treated. You're supposed to just have it there and have it lock you in, and it does really and truly lock you in. It feels fantastic. This knife is an absolute ergonomic king. Again, I have 2XL hands. A lot of people might ask me why I don't get the Manix 2XL. It is just a different knife, and in my personal opinion, it's not the same. The ergonomics just don't fit as well. If the handle was just a little bit longer, maybe, sure. Blade a little bit longer, sure, but there are pieces to it that just somehow don't work as well as they do in this form factor. See, even right now, without using this choil, again, fingers off the edge, but it's still comfortable. There's nothing really stabbing me. It's not the best feeling in the world. It's much better when you choke up on it. but it still feels absolutely fantastic. I have processed through a whole bunch of zip ties, which is actually why this whole thing has been chipped. Cut open bags of concrete. I actually hammered in a nail with this blade. Literally had the nail right there, and I was just smacking the palm of my hand into it, which is not the best way to hammer a nail. Could have done that or any number of things, but anyways, that's what happened. It held up to it just fine. Again, there is definitely damage to the blade, but me personally, I kind of like it this way. I think it looks cool. This has been my workhorse for a long time. I have never sharpened this knife, and I just want you guys to see something after literally years of carry and hard use. It still cuts. It's starting to drag a little bit through cardboard now, but that's really only because, again, I've used it for years and I have not sharpened it, but it's still sharp enough that I'll probably not sharpen it for another year or so, because it's going to keep on going through things. I don't need it to make these nice clean cuts. I just need it to be able to cut. S110V is a phenomenal steel. So when I originally got this knife, I made these scales, right? Not these, to be clear, these are Flytanium, but I made a pair of brass scales. I spent a ridiculously long period of time doing it. They looked all right. They were just a little bit too thick, and I actually swapped them out maybe 5 or 6 months ago with these Flytanium scales. I still have those original hand-done brass scales because, I mean, I spent so much time on them, I'm not going to get rid of them. But if you do want to go the Flytanium route, these feel absolutely fantastic. When I started actually wanting to review this knife, I wanted to put on some hardware that you could actually get. I'm not going to hand make you any brass scales. That takes too much fucking time. It's not worth the money. But if you want to go the Flytanium route, again, these are Flytanium scales. I think my fit and finish is a little better because, again, they're done by hand. But this still fits and feels absolutely fantastic. Flytanium did a great job. The Flytanium manix titanium cage, too, also fantastic job. And Spyderco overall made an amazing knife. Now, I still got more to say about this knife, but I'm going to get this out of the way right now. My score for the Spyderco Manix 2 is 100. I truly have no complaints with this knife. Again, there's aesthetic pieces like this lanyard tube right here. That's aesthetic-wise. As far as ergonomics, edge geometry, the way it feels in hand, the longevity of it, the durability of it, like, I genuinely have no complaints. At one point in time, I tried to break this knife. Not to make it like the blade snap or whatever. Fun fact for people who like Spyderco and the Spidey hole, this weakens the hell out of the blade. If you pry with this knife, you're not going to lose the tip. You're going to lose the whole goddamn blade. It's going to snap right here. So, not trying to break the blade, but just make the knife fail. You know, I've actually batoned with this thing before. I'm not going to say it got all the way through the chunk of wood without having this thing disengaged. That's not true. But it got about 15 spine whacks into it before it actually popped. Now, when in your daily life are you going to spine whack a blade 15 times while going through a big ass chunk of wood? And I mean, I literally had a piece of freaking fat wood just smacking down on the spine trying to baton 15 times. Like, that's insane. I went through an entire piece of wood and then halfway through another piece of wood before this thing disengaged. And then even then, literally, it went like this. And I pried it out of the wood, locked it, and went back to it again. And the next time, it survived probably 4 or 5 spine whacks before it did it again. So it was clearly weakening the mechanism, so I stopped doing that immediately. But the fact that you can is incredible. If you don't need to spine whack a blade and to produce kindling and everything else, then, you know, just as far as overall daily use, this knife's just not going to fail you. It is absolutely fantastic. It has this nice drop shut action. If you choose to hold the ball bearing mechanism, it'll bounce until it eventually sits like that. with a little bit of practice, you can just make it drop straight in. So the lockup is secure. The weight of the general G10 one, it feels good. I like having the weight of the brass scales on it personally, but it's not a bad knife, just the general G10 one. I will say the Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight, I fucking hate. I had one of those. I actually gave it away to a member of the Best Immediacy Discord server. I think his name was Tack. Goes by Starboy now. Anyway, I just gave it to him. It doesn't have any nice knives. I just gave it to him free of charge. Here you go. Like, paid for shipping, paid for everything. It's not to say it's... I don't know how to put this. The Spyderco lightweight, again, I hated it. It's not a bad knife. That was also the S110V version, to be clear. And I don't know, man. Just for me, the rigidity of having the liners, I like the heavier scales, everything else. It just clicks with me much more. The lightweight version had a lot of flex to it. Didn't feel substantial in the hand. So I like the standard version with the G10. But again, my absolute preference is having this gorgeous copper, kind of bronzy finish to it. Copper, excuse me. Brass. So, again, if you're looking for a hard use knife, I really cannot recommend the Spyderco Manix 2 more. You know, this knife, for what I chose to use it for, which is at first I wanted to use it as EDC, and I cut some zip ties and I chipped that S110V, which you can see right there, almost immediately. I was pissed. I was like, you know what, fuck this knife. And I just started using it as my absolute beater, and the more I beat on it, the more it just kept on going. I did a couple more chips into it, but again, it's still, despite the chips, function just fine, cut just fine, and I have grown to love this knife so much. As far as my work knives, again, I love my Medfords, I love my other work knives, but this thing is perfect. So, do a couple size comparisons for my work knives. Medford 187 DP, obviously much bigger than the Manix 2. Also have the Sabenza, which is a work knife. Hasn't got too much patina or damage to it yet, but we're getting there. Starting to get little scratches here and there and some other stuff. We also have the PM2. So PM2 is a longer knife, but somehow, even with my bigger hands, the Manix 2 is just, for me, better. PM2 is a good knife. The Manix 2, again, to me, it's just perfect. It's fantastic. Now, those of you who watch my channel know that I sometimes have knives that are thousands of dollars. You know, we're talking like full customs, super high-end productions and mid-techs and everything else. This knife, if you want to buy it stock with a G10, a little over $100. Okay, I'm telling you firsthand that all of those amazing, fantastic, super high-end knives, they don't compare to this little piece right here. Now, some of them might look cooler, some of them might have a better story to them, some of them might feel a little better in hand, but none of them do quite what this knife does so effortlessly. So if you want the big high-end customs and everything else, that's fine. I do not regret buying my Medfords or my Dire Wares or any of my other high-end stuff. But you don't necessarily need it. My whole story is that if you want a knife and you say I need a $40 knife, can't afford anything more. Bro, screw the $40 knife, screw the $20 knife, screw the gas station knife, save up, $110 or whatever is not that much. And again, this knife is just absolutely fantastic. After years of use, I still really don't have any problems with it at all. It is fantastic. It is the closest thing to perfection I've ever seen in a knife. Metal Complex has this whole thing about Excalibur. It's kind of underwhelming given how much high-end cutlery I have on my channel and in my collection. But the Manix 2, especially with these brass scales and a titanium bearing cage once I get it back in here, is my Excalibur. It is just something that I can never not love and can never not want to use. And there are times I'm reviewing other knives and I have that knife in my pocket and then this knife in my other pocket, and I have to actively remind myself, sorry about that, hit the camera, to pull out the knife out for review, because almost always this is just somehow better. So with all that being said, thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your likes, subscribes, your comments, everything else. They really do mean the absolute world to me. You guys mean the absolute world to me. I love you all very, very much. And please do me just this one favor and do the best you can to be a better person tomorrow than you are today. And I do promise you'll find your center in life. As always, thank you for your time. If you don't have a Manix 2, go out, buy one. If you hated it first, keep on using it, and I do promise you, you're probably going to fall in love with it. When I first got this knife, I hated it. And years later, man, this is something that will never, ever go up for sale. If I had to sell all my knives, I guarantee this would be the one that just stuck around. And that's baffling to me. Price is subjective, and you can find something for $100 or you can find something for thousands of dollars, and sometimes the $100 just works better. As always, thank you for your time and take care. Bye.